Hello, I'm Jake Boudreau, civic journalist at Telel Community Television. This week, on The Record, EverWind Fuels explains a recent financial milestone for its green energy project in Point Tupper. The MLA for Richmond and Nova Scotia's Minister of Energy talks about the approval of wind farms in the province. New federal legislation helps pave the way for offshore wind projects. And the MLA for Guysborough-Tracadie discusses recent funding for the Strait of Canso Superport Corporation. But first, Hawkesbury Paper and the Nova Scotia Seafood Alliance talk about the potential impacts of American tariffs on their sectors. With me today is the co-manager of the Hawkesbury Paper Mill in Point Tupper. Welcome, Mike Hardery.
Thank you, Jake.
As you know, U.S. President Donald Trump announced tariffs of 25% on goods coming from Canada into the United States. As it stands right now, is it just too early to react to this, considering the possibility that the president could change his mind or this situation could change?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly too early to react with any specifics. You know, we can tell you that we export 93% of our product into the United States. So we're acutely exposed, and we're quite concerned, as anyone could understand, like many Canadian businesses. You know, we're working with our customers every hour over the weekend. They're wondering what's going to happen. So we're managing those conversations hour by hour. You know, in preparation for this, once the threat was clear, some weeks ago, we began to scrutinize at a whole other level all of our costs, because we have to do, you know, we're responsible to do what we can, given the fact that we have 320 employees at the mill. Indirectly, there's almost another 900 through the forestry industries, contractors, etc. We have to do what we can to make sure we can mitigate and outlast the potential tariff. And that includes working with the provincial and federal governments, and we've been active on that front. So we're pulling out all the stops. You know, if you put it in context, we've been a successful entity since PHP started up in 2012, and we still are profitable. But our level of profitability currently is nowhere near the cost of the tariff. There's orders of magnitude there, difference. So we have to find ways to mitigate. And that's our focus. We're planning to outlast it, and on we go.
You just alluded to that, your ability to be able to withstand a tariff is monumental. And I know you don't want to get too ahead of yourself, but if the tariff is implemented and in place and permanent, is this a case where there's going to have to be reductions made at the operation or at the mill, including job losses and spending cuts and other things like that?
We don't have any specifics at this point. Our focus is to reduce as much as we can our main cost points. So, you know, power's a huge cost for us. It's our number one cost. Wood is the next on the list. So we're really focused on more than just power and wood, but it's too early to give specifics. Obviously, our goal is to maintain our order book as it is today, which means we are planning to run as we do today. So, of course, the situation can evolve, and we'll address it, you know, at such a time.
Now, you mentioned that you're looking for ways to mitigate the potential of these tariffs, and I assume one of those ways, and I think you alluded to something along those lines earlier, does that mean looking for other customers, non-American customers, for your product?
Yeah, we're always doing that. There's limitations on what those markets look like. The Canadian market is a pretty good market, but it's a small market, as you can appreciate, relative to the US. And export markets have been interesting for us at times in the past, but the US market is clearly the best market for our products.
And not to belabor the point, but we're not sure exactly what's going to happen there. But if these tariffs are implemented, what will be the impact on the mill? You mentioned that 93% of your product is exported to the United States, and your ability to withstand those extra costs are limited, and it's definitely going to have an impact. As you mentioned, it's too hard to say exactly what they are going to be, but I guess it's safe to say in general, right now, that it's going to have an impact.
It will, and like almost all Canadian businesses, we have to have conversations with our customers, which I'm sure you can appreciate are confidential. But because we can't bear the full cost of the tariff, we have to pass that on. We have to pass the cost of the tariff on. That obviously comes with risk. So, it's a pretty delicate situation, and we need to manage those conversations with confidentiality and great care.
Now, the same day that the president announced the tariffs, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced retaliatory tariffs of 25% on goods coming into the country. Is this something that you guys think is a good idea, or is it a matter of maybe it would have been better to wait and see exactly what was going to happen? Because it appears, if you look at the news today, it seems that things are changing, and it appears like it's kind of an opaque situation right now that's just not really clear and a little bit muddled. Would it have been better to wait for those retaliatory tariffs, or do you support that?
I think it's hard to say it would have been better to wait. It's hard to know unless you're part of the whole negotiations, and obviously none of us are directly. So it's hard to judge. I think when you're slapped in the face or betrayed, it's hard not to react like that, So if you roll over, is that really the best answer? I think many people would say not, even though we know we're a small economy relative to the US. There's concern obviously with retaliatory tariffs and what that does for Canadians as well as individuals, because it will hurt us in that regard. It's not just the US tariffs, but our retaliatory tariffs. But of course, the government knows that. And I think we have to respect the fact that they made a decision to announce the retaliatory tariffs in a staged way, which is important to recognize because the lion's share of it would come later if a tariff was imposed by the US. So that's my personal view on the retaliation.
Now, you guys mentioned I assume you've been meeting, strategizing, planning, trying to figure out, the next way forward. And I guess at this point in time, all you guys can do is kind of continue to do that, I assume, and beyond that, not much else.
I mean, if the tariff is imposed tomorrow, what we plan today could change in 2 days. It's just too fluid a situation. There's no history to rely on, no playbook to go back to understand what we could expect. The uncertainty will persist without question.
Yeah, I suppose it's hard to plan ahead, too far ahead, when hour by hour things seem to be changing, and the situation seems to be unpredictable, I guess, to be charitable.
Yeah, and how all the different markets for Canadian businesses will react to that is an unknown as well. So quite fluid.
Yes, I guess that impact on the greater economy is, it's impossible to predict or to know it, especially at this situation and at this time right now.
Right.
Well, that's certainly understandable, and I appreciate you taking time out of what I'm sure is a busy time right now, and a hectic time and a tumultuous time, to talk to me and speak to our viewers and answer my questions. I really appreciate that.
Oh, you're most welcome, Jake. Appreciate the opportunity to convey PHP's thoughts to you.
With me today is the Executive Director of the Nova Scotia Seafood Alliance. Welcome, Chris Fascato.
Thank you, Jake. Happy to be here.
So maybe perhaps you can start off by explaining what the alliance is, what function it serves, and who it represents.
So basically, the Nova Scotia Seafood Alliance is the body that represents the shore-based sector and the wild fish and seafood sector within Nova Scotia. So you think of all the harvesters that are applying the water and they land that product at the wharves. Our members are the ones that take that product and they either process it, they box it, and they're basically responsible for moving that product to market and generating the revenue that funds the province to the tune of $2.5 billion a year.
As you know, U.S. President Donald Trump said he would enact tariffs of 25% on Canadian exports, and the federal government announced that same day tariffs of 25% on American goods coming into our country. As far as the seafood sector, what will be the impact of these tariffs on seafood entering the United States?
Well, we have to accept that, roughly 40-45% of every piece of wild caught fish and seafood that is exported out of Scotia goes south of the border to our American partners. So anytime that you introduce a disruption there, whether it be tariffs, whether it be non-tariff trade barriers, there's definitely going to be an impact. We are still in early days of this, so we don't yet know exactly how this is going to play out. Will the consumer in the U.S. be willing to actually pay that extra 25%? How is that value going to be absorbed? And really today, we're even trying to figure out whether there's going to be another exemption that's allowed for another month or so. So we're just in a period of profound uncertainty. We're expecting things to crystallize over the next couple of hours and the next couple of days. Then we'll be able to chart a little bit more of a path forward. But at this point, the core word is uncertainty.
And is it possible that certain good seafoods like lobster and snow crab could be impacted differently than other products in this scenario?
Well, it really is a question of timing, right? I mean, if we look at now, we've still got a lobster season that's running well. We do have some ground fish being processed and caught, like ocean perch. We also have Atlantic halibut landing at the wharf. So yes, right now there's going to be a disproportionate logistical impact right now on those sectors. Now, if we put ourselves ahead, 2 months or so, then we're into the prime snow crab processing season. And that's where we begin to see the ground shift a little bit, especially as all the other lobster fishing areas open up and we begin to see the fisheries become very, very active. That's the time that we begin to see, at least in our mindset, a little bit more of a logistical challenge. In the meantime, between now and then, it's about saying, okay, if these tariffs are in place, we're still waiting to see exactly how that's going to play out. Are we going to be able to find other customers worldwide who are also interested in taking the product? I mean, we are a fairly diverse industry. I spoke to the 40 or 45% that we put across the border. That means there's, 60-65% that we're putting elsewhere to other customers in Asia, into the European Union, and other spots around the world. There's an opportunity for us to divert more product into those markets. So that's why I say, how this is all going to play is certainly going to wait to be seen. But we definitely know that there is going to be something.
So you alluded to, maybe finding different markets for seafood products here in Canada and Nova Scotia. So I assume those are among the plans and contingencies that you guys are considering, even though, as you said, it's hard to say right now what exactly could happen.
Exactly. I mean, right now we have active fisheries that are ongoing, and I spoke to them: Atlantic halibut, ocean perch, lobster. Let's take lobster, for example. About 35-40% of all the live lobster that's landed in Nova Scotia goes to the US. Well, that gives us, 65-70% that we actually put elsewhere in the world, right? And there's an opportunity for us to actually instead start talking to those customers and saying, well, are you interested in increasing your buy? So that's the step right now. Say, okay, we know that we put a lot of live lobster into Asia. Now, will they be increasing their buy because of the changes that are happening? The same thing might apply to the European Union. So what this really is about is saying, okay, what is it that we're facing? Then we can start figuring out what we're going to do in response to it, because there is a chance that our existing customers will be willing to absorb that tariff cost coming in. And then we'd be going on as business as usual. If not, we'll start looking at some of those other customers that we have, as well as looking at new customers and new opportunities, which thankfully, because we do have some strong free trade agreements in place with the European Union under CETA, we're developing things in Asia right now. There are other places to go. We just have to start turning our minds to them.
You've mentioned that it is early and it's hard to say what will happen, but I assume that there are some worries and concerns that are being expressed to you as the executive director of the Nova Scotia Seafood Alliance by people onshore, offshore, about the prospect of these tariffs. I assume you're hearing some kind of feedback on that.
Most certainly. I mean, at this point, ever since this began to be discussed back in November, reiterated back as the early parts of this new administration, right across to the weekend, my phone has been active. My email has been active. There's a lot of concerns and a lot of questions. And really, we're all just waiting to find out what the answers are to some of those questions, such that we can finally begin to proactively move forward. I mean, it's all well and good for us to talk about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it now, but we're really being faced with the situation. So everybody is concerned. There's a lot of uncertainty, but we are going to be able to get through it. We're a strong country and we're a very strong industry. We've faced challenges before. We'll be able to deal with this one.
Now, as you noticed, or as you mentioned, it is early. It's hard to say what could happen. Do I guess, is it a matter of where you're preparing for the worst, but hoping for the best?
At this point, we're just trying to prepare. I mean, really, we're in a situation where it is very much a change in landscape. Even over the last 4 hours of today, while we had something we felt was certain on Saturday, it's already beginning to change. So really, the uncertainty is just rife right now, and it's just a matter of trying to get some solid idea. But that's not going to stop people and enterprises and members from deciding, you know what, instead of going here, I'm going to start to focus here. And I'm actually getting calls about that now of individuals saying, we're going to start looking over here and start moving to new places as a result of this. And that's good. The more customers we have buying Nova Scotia fish and seafood, the more resistant that we're going to be to any sort of perturbations of this type.
Now, do you get a sense that there's support within the seafood sector for the retaliatory tariffs that were announced by the federal government hours after the Americans announced their tariffs?
There's always that question of everybody wants to be able to hit back, right? That's something that happens throughout. But at the same time, we have to consider what some of those impacts may necessarily be. In some respects, whether we're talking seafood or other sectors, we rely on raw material volumes from down south to be able to bring into our plants to turn into a processed product to generate additional revenue. Tariffing those coming in could actually cause us problems domestically and cause us problems with jobs. So, it's one of these things that we're still in active discussions on these exact pieces because, when you hit back with a retaliatory tariff, you have to be very careful about how you do it to make sure you don't have any unintended consequences. So at this point, we look at both the federal and the provincial governments. They're doing their work in what they believe is the right thing to do. We've had discussions with them about both sides, about what might be the best approach to take. And at this point, we just have to have some confidence in our leadership that they're doing the right thing that's best for Canadians in general.
Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule at a tumultuous time to speak with me and our viewers. Thank you very much.
And Jake, thank you very much for the time. And the one thing I would ask your viewers is please go and find some Nova Scotian wild fish and seafood and put it on your plate. We land so many different types of species and we process them right here in the province and in Atlantic Canada. They're in your supermarkets, they're in your fish markets. Sit down and try some, you'll be pleasantly surprised.
With me today is the Vice President of Power at EverWind Fuels Ltd. Welcome, Brendan Chard.
Hi, Jake. Thanks very much for having me.
According to a press release issued on January 9th, EverWind Fuels successfully completed and submitted the Clean Hydrogen Investment Tax Credit Clean Hydrogen Project Property Plan for EverWind's Point Tupper Green Ammonia Project Phase 1, and that was submitted to Natural Resources Canada. What does this mean for the project overall?
Well, it's a big milestone for us, and it's really the culmination of a lot of engineering work that our team has done in conjunction with our partners, and then the validation work around emissions reductions. So the work that was done by RWDI, as well as the calculations by Deloitte, show a 99% reduction in greenhouse gases for the production of green ammonia, green hydrogen at our facility, compared to hydrogen produced using fossil fuels and traditional methods. So it was a big milestone for us. And then financially, being eligible for the highest tier of investment tax credits really means that our project will be able to compete globally in this new market. So it's certainly an exciting milestone for us to have reached.
Just to clarify, is this just for the green ammonia component of the project and not the green hydrogen?
It's the green hydrogen component at the highest tier. So the investment tax credits are available for different components of the project. Wind has a 30% investment tax credit. The hydrogen production is a 40% investment tax credit, which we're eligible for as confirmed by this recent work. And then the ammonia components are eligible for a 15% investment tax credit.
Now, you just alluded to this. Upon confirmation, the Point Tupper project is expected to be the first project in Canada to secure the tax credit, confirming eligibility for maximum credit value based on independently validated carbon intensity of clean hydrogen. And you'd alluded to the 40%, and as well, it's based on a projected carbon intensity of less than 0.75 kilograms of carbon dioxide per kilogram of green hydrogen. How does this help the project progress? It's validating that it's clean. Is that essentially what we're talking about?
Exactly. So it's really two components. One is validating the cleanness and greenness of our product. So our hydrogen is going to be extremely low carbon intensity, almost zero, 99% reduction, again, from traditional methods. And that allows us to unlock the incentives through the investment tax credits. So by securing the highest tier of investment tax credits, it allows us to reduce the effective capital cost of our project, which makes our green hydrogen more competitive on the global market.
You just kind of preempted my next question, and because in the press release it noted that the investment tax credits are critical to ensuring that Canada is able to provide the most cost-efficient, greenest hydrogen globally and provides a globally competitive cost for early movers. So not only is this helping the project achieve some milestones, but it's also a feather in the cap to the federal government, I guess, in a way as well.
Absolutely. And they've been very supportive of our project all the way along. So to be able to meet the requirements that they put in place for the investment tax credit certainly validates the work that they have put into this. And we know that they're doing everything they can to help support projects like ours and help support our partners in Europe. So we know Canada and Germany are working together to ensure that we see trade between the countries. And I think given the current geopolitical situation, ensuring that those relationships bear fruit for both sides is very important, especially in Nova Scotia, where so much of our trade today is tied to the US. Having markets in other places is certainly something that's beneficial to us in the province as well as federally.
Yes, and that would serve as an enticement, not just for Germany, which you guys have already signed a tentative agreement with, but other countries that might be also looking at the green energy that's produced at your proposed project in Point Tupper.
That's right. All across the European Union, there I guess there is a lot of work ongoing to ensure that hydrogen is being produced or imported using clean methods. And so our product absolutely meets the requirements there. And globally, there's a lot of places that are looking for green hydrogen and green ammonia. So it's a big market and it's a growing market.
You had alluded to some of this too earlier. The submission leverages a recently completed front-end engineering design study and includes an assessment of the project's expected carbon intensity using the fuel life cycle assessment model. These key deliverables ensure compliance with stringent regulatory standards for clean hydrogen production. Validation of life cycle carbon intensity calculations was achieved in collaboration with RWDI, as you alluded to, a world-renowned engineering and environmental consultancy, and calculations conducted by Deloitte Canada, a leader in carbon intensity analysis. The results confirm that EverWind's project will achieve an industry-leading carbon reduction of over 99% compared to fossil fuel-based hydrogen production. And it's also noted here that RWDI performed the validation of the project. So this proves that what the company, government, and other supporters have been saying about this project, that it will provide a much greener alternative to fossil fuels.
Absolutely. And as part of our project, we're developing new renewable electricity projects that will supply the electricity needed to produce the green hydrogen. And so we're really excited to be able to move those projects forward in parallel with the production facility at Point Tupper.
You're talking about the wind energy projects, I assume?
That's right. So we'll have four wind projects that we're developing in Nova Scotia, and we have environmental assessments approved, engineering work is well advanced, and we're looking to start construction as early as the second half of this year on those projects. And we're also looking at some solar and batteries to help balance out the wind to make it a good portfolio of renewable energy sources.
Yes, and I guess it's a way of not putting all your eggs in one basket by just relying on wind energy alone as a sustainable source of energy.
Exactly. Although Nova Scotia is not necessarily world renowned for its sun, we are for wind, and there's actually a very good complementary nature. So it's less windy here in the summer, but it is sunnier. So we do see a good diversity coming from balancing some of the wind with the solar.
Now, with confirmation of ITC eligibility at 40%, everyone said it is well positioned to finalize binding offtake agreements and begin construction on its multi-billion-dollar production and transportation facility this year in 2025. So this means that the company will proceed to another phase, and if so, when does that occur?
Yeah, so we're working to finalize those offtake or those sales agreements for our product. And really, that's the last hurdle to be able to achieve a final investment decision and get shovels in the ground. So we're really hopeful that we will see further announcements on that this year and start construction by the end of the year if all goes well on that front.
Now, are you able to say who you are working with on those offtake agreements?
Not at this time. We do have a couple of MOUs that are public, but we have a number of other discussions ongoing with potential counterparties. So can't divulge that at the moment, but certainly excited to be able to share more when we can.
That's certainly understandable. Since 2022, EverWind has invested over $200 million in infrastructure, engineering, and development work at project sites, including Point Tupper. EverWind's capital expenditures for Point Tupper Phase 1 is $3.4 billion, and for Phase 2, it's $10.3 billion. How much more remains to be invested?
Well, the development work is ongoing, so we'll be working to finalize the engineering and design of our project, and then the capital expenditures really start. So the balance of those capital numbers that you just referenced, once we make a final investment decision, that's things like ordering the wind turbines, the electrolyzers, the ammonia loop, all of those things. That's the balance of the investment, and that will come after we have the offtake agreement in place and make a final investment decision. So it's a huge project for the province and certainly for Cape Breton and the Strait region, and we're really excited to be able to bring those benefits to the local communities.
Based on what you're saying, I think it's safe to assume those are going to be significant dollar amounts we're going to be looking at.
That's right. It's a multi-billion-dollar project just for Phase 1, and those are big numbers for the province. I'm a lifelong Nova Scotian. It's really exciting to see this type of project being developed here in the province.
Yes, and as a lifelong Nova Scotian, as you said, you know that the wind is an unlimited resource. But if you look at the potential from this project for Point Tupper alone, I'm just alluding to, it's something pretty significant for this province, not just this region that I'm in right now.
Absolutely. And it's great to see so much other interest in renewable energy here in the province. There's a lot of other wind that's being developed right now for the grid to help us get off coal by 2030. And in the long term, achieve a net zero electricity grid. We're seeing battery projects, we're seeing transmission investments, and all of this is happening at the same time. So it's really great that we can clean the grid and at the same time stand up a new, exciting, clean industry that will create good jobs and local benefits here in the province.
And one of the things that's been mentioned is, it's a green source of energy and it's going to create employment and attract investment on its own. But the other part of this is that it's also an enticement for other industries, other businesses, other employers to come here to access this source of green energy. And that could be the real benefit, not to dismiss the benefit from the project alone.
Yeah, that's a great point. And our product to start, the market is in Europe and other places, and we'll export it. And that's a good thing in itself. But to be able to attract other industries here to Nova Scotia that need fuel and clean fuel, clean hydrogen, clean ammonia, that is really a great long-term opportunity, whether that's something like steel making or cement making, or just decarbonizing heavy industry and heavy transportation here in the province. Those are all opportunities that we're really excited to help with.
And then, as you said, helping to clean up the electrical grid, the power grid for Nova Scotians is also a pretty big feather in the cap of the province if once that is achieved.
Absolutely. And it's really exciting to see the province's clean power plan in action. The rate-based procurement a couple of years ago got, I think, 4 projects up and running. They're under construction or starting construction now, and they just finished the Green Choice program. So there's, I think, contracts that will be announced soon for other new wind projects. So it's really great to see the province putting so much emphasis on cleaning up our province and making sure that we have a sustainable and clean economy here going forward.
Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with me and our viewers about what is quickly becoming a pretty significant project.
Great. Well, thanks very much for having me, Jake. It was a pleasure.
With me today is Nova Scotia's Minister of Energy. Welcome, Richmond MLA Trevor Boudreau.
Thanks for having me, Jake.
So an announcement made today, January 27th, the provincial government said wind farms were selected and large-scale power users are going to be participating under the Green Choice program. 6 wind farms were chosen through a competitive independent procurement to support the program, the province confirmed, noting they will start generating more than 2,000 gigawatt hours of clean electricity per year by the end of 2028. Among the successful wind projects in the independent procurement was Rodina Inverness County, which is being developed by ABO Energy Canada in partnership with First Nations, including Budladek here in Richmond County.
That's right.
I recall originally that this project didn't proceed a couple of years ago, and now it's going. So maybe we can talk about what's different from the old project that didn't proceed to this project now. What's the difference?
There's a couple of differences with Rodina in particular. So it was a larger project when it was first proposed. I think in 2022 is when it was initially started and kind of worked through the processes there. This time around, it's part of the Green Choice program, and there's certain requirements that they had to meet to get into that. So it's now down to 6 turbines rather than, I think it was 15 originally in the first one. They did a lot of community consultation and certainly had conversations with people about some of the issues that they had. And my understanding is this one with 6 turbines meets, a lot of those concerns. And so it's, so again, it's one of these things where they are now all on private land, for example. That's part of the prerequisite for the Green Choice program. And so again, they see the value in providing this in the community and want to work with the community to do it. And so we're pleased that they're part of that program.
Now, are the turbines going to be located in the same area where the original proposal was, or was there a change in that as well?
I don't know all the details, Jake, but I do know that some of the setbacks were changed, and like I said, there's 6 now instead of 15, so it's definitely a smaller footprint in terms of that. But generally speaking, they made modifications to meet the needs of the program, but also to work with the community.
Another successful local wind farm is Egg Mountain in Antigonish County, which is being developed by Renewable Energy Systems Canada in partnership with the Begnadek and Pictou Landing First Nations. Perhaps you can talk about this project a little bit. What does it entail? What's the size? What are we looking at here?
Yeah, I mean, it's, like I'll just kind of go through kind of the six program, like the 6 of the wind farms combined is 2,000 gigawatt hours. That's significant, right? That's getting basically it's getting 78% of our clean electricity by 2028. This is an increase of 19% total towards that 78%. So that's good news. And in terms of Egg Mountain, and we're saying it's in Pictou County. Basically there's 3 projects in Pictou County, but it's a significant size. It's about 150 megawatt size, so it's one of the larger ones. Port Hawkesbury Paper, which was just announced, would be a little bit bigger than that one, the Goose Harbor Lake one.
Now, I noted too in this announcement that the First Nations, particularly local First Nations and some close by, are heavily involved in this. And maybe you can talk about this and what this benefit is for these First Nations communities.
Yeah, it's always great when there's partnerships, and certainly one of the things that ranked highest in terms of the procurement process was about engaging the Mi'kmaq communities and trying to work with them as partners. And so each of these 6 wind farms has different First Nations communities involvement. I think Glooscap has 3 of them themselves, and then, like you said, Butladek and Wagmacook and Wakaba, they're all involved as well. So it's really nice to see this because they have a lot to offer these these wind farms, and they're communities that are close or near, or certainly the economic benefits that can help the Mi'kmaq communities as well as being partners in it. It's a good news story. It's a win for everybody, I would say.
Now, in the press release that was released today, the province said the developers are investing about $73.5 million in social and economic benefits for communities where the wind farms are located. The benefits include training, skill development, capacity building grants, and scholarships. The province also said there will be about 700 construction jobs and 30 full-time jobs to operate the wind farms. Now, this is for all 6 wind farms, I'm assuming, but I guess, not to overshadow the economic benefit that can result from their location in these communities.
Yeah, that's right. And that's exactly it. So if you think about these projects as a whole, $1.2 billion investment by these proponents, right? These 6 wind turbines. And as you talked about, $73.5 million over the lifespan, over the 25 years for those community benefits. What I would also say is, if you think about those 700 jobs, that's skilled jobs that are, that supply chain that will be done during construction, and then those 30 full-time jobs in a green economy. These are significant amounts of jobs, in rural Nova Scotia. And what I would say is, this is just the start. We have a very strong belief that the environment and the economy will go hand in hand, and we see the opportunity of growing our green economy. And if you think about the projects that we're talking about in our local area, Jake, like the hydrogen projects and the offshore wind projects, and those are all exciting projects that are going to help us grow the economy, have better paychecks for Nova Scotians, and certainly, help with the challenges that people face with cost of living. So I would say this is all good news. And on top of that, with these 6 wind farms, another figure I'd throw out is that municipalities will get, each year will get $7 million in property taxes. So that if you think about it, over 25 years, that's about $175 million invested in these projects that are going to property taxes for municipalities. So good news story all around.
Now, the other component of this announcement was that the province announced that most of the 11 large-scale electricity customers participating in the Green Choice program will get their electricity under the program. And these customers include provincial government-owned buildings and operations, including public schools, most of Nova Scotia Health's hospitals and health centers, and the Nova Scotia Provincial Housing Agency. This also includes federal departments, agencies, and Canada Post Crown facilities, Nova Scotia universities and colleges, including Université Saint-Anne, and all Nova Scotia community campuses, college campuses, including the Strait area campus in Port Hawkesbury. Why is it important to get these big users online?
Well, look, what I would say is, that was really the spirit of this program, was to connect those large users to this green energy for them, right? It is putting that green energy on the system, and it helps us get to that 78%. But these are large users, and it's kind of hard to explain. It's almost bigger than what we can think, but it would be users that use more than 10,000 megawatt hours a year. And so to put that in perspective, an average home uses about 10. So each of these users, like if you're 10,000, that would be the equivalent of 1,000 homes. And what I would say is, for all of these partners, their rates don't change. They pay the same power rate as they would have before to Nova Scotia Power. They pay directly to Nova Scotia Power. But what they do get out of it is a rebate on their carbon tax because they're now getting all of their energy or most of their energy from green sources. They would get a rebate on carbon tax. And for a lot of organizations, it's also very important to have that the social or the climate change aspect of it. So they're able to go to their shareholders or through their stakeholders and say, we're getting our energy from green sources. So they will get, green, energy certificates, renewable energy certificates, so that they can show those stakeholders that yes, we are getting our energy from green sources. It's a great news story. And I will just frame one of them you mentioned was St. FX, and St. FX actually gets their power through the municipal utility that's there in Antigonish, and so they're not eligible to be part of this program. Only Nova Scotia Power customers are. So, like you talk about schools in most of the Strait region outside of Antigonish itself. But what I would say about that is our municipal utility proponents, like Antigonish, are really leading the way when it comes to green renewable energy. So they're getting more than 80% of their energy from green sources now anyway.
I mean, it's good that you noted that, because that was mentioned in the press release about the municipal electric utilities. So for these users, I guess you mentioned it's going to be it would be a sizable rebate under the carbon tax program, I'm assuming, because you're looking at users, like you say, using about 10,000 kilowatt hours of electricity.
Yeah, and I don't have the exact numbers. They're all different, right? And all of the users have different amounts of energy that they use. And so basically what they'll see on their Nova Scotia Power bill is they'll have their regular rate that they paid before. Then they'll have an administrative fee from Nova Scotia Power that's administrating the program. And then they would have a line that's a rebate for their carbon tax is what they would have.
Now, it was announced that Nova Scotia Power will pay an average of $63.62 per megawatt hour for electricity from these wind farms. Maybe you can explain how this is a good deal for Nova Scotia Power.
Yeah, no, it's a great deal for Nova Scotians, and you know what I mean? So if you think about it, one of the challenges we've had over the last little while is that we when we're using coal as a power source, you are at the mercy of the coal prices, the global coal prices. And so those prices can go all over the place. And right now, for example, coal would be anywhere from $90 to $110 per megawatt hour. So if you think about it, it's anywhere from almost 30% to 40% lower in terms of what Nova Scotia Power is going to be buying from these producers. So they're saving really that cost that it would have been for coal, but they're also stabilizing rates for the next 25 years. So we know what that wind is going to cost for the next 25 years. And it makes Nova Scotia Power's rates predictable in a sense.
You said in the press release that the Green Choice Program is the single largest addition of clean electricity and the single largest reduction in greenhouse gas emissions in Nova Scotia's history. That's quite a milestone.
That's something, isn't it? It's I mean, this has been, this department has been working really hard, developing and designing this program, and I give full credit to the staff here who've worked really hard to kind of support this type of program. And it's like any of our programs where we always keep in mind a couple of things, and it's always about the ratepayer when it comes to power rates, right? We want to find the lowest cost options possible for Nova Scotians. And so, like when we talk about wind, 20 years ago, it might have been a lot more expensive than coal, but now it is the cheapest way for us to get power. And not only that, but it stabilizes those rates because this is a resource that we have close to home. And so, you can talk about just the green power part of this, but the green economic part of it is also what I'm very excited about. And that's what is the potential for us to grow our green economy. And so we've got a lot of work to do, but I'm excited to really do it. And again, this is all good news story.
Now, also in that quote, you added that our province has incredible onshore and offshore wind speeds, and now is the time to use it to our advantage. And so what you're saying is there's no time to delay, and basically this province has to make hay now.
Well, what I would say is you know, the world has changed over the last little while, and you know, anybody who's listening to the news understands, you know, what's changing in the US and what's changing globally. And I would say it's very important for Nova Scotia to be self-reliant, to basically look at what we have and the potential that we have, and get that potential to fruition, right? Like, this is a great opportunity for us to not rely on others, to be a global leader in not only greening our grid, but also utilizing the resources we have to help our partners green as well. So there's lots of opportunity, and we, you know, we owe it to Nova Scotians, I would say, to get this done.
Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with me and our viewers. Very much appreciate it. Thanks.
You're very welcome, Jake. Take care.
The federal government, in partnership with the Government of Nova Scotia, announced new legislation to enable the development of offshore renewable energy. This follows the passage of Bill C-49 and Nova Scotia's mirror legislation, Bill 471, which amended the federal and provincial versions of the Canada-Nova Scotia Offshore Petroleum Resources Accord Implementation Act, the federal government noted. According to a press release issued by the federal government, this legislation enables a joint management regulatory framework for offshore renewable energy development. The federal government said Bill 49 includes amendments to the Canada-Nova Scotia Accord Act that establishes the framework to develop offshore renewable energy, changes the Canada-Nova Scotia Offshore Petroleum Board's name to the Canada-Nova Scotia Offshore Energy Regulator, expands the mandate of the CNSOER to include the regulation of offshore renewable energy projects, improves alignment between the Accord Act and the Impact Assessment Act, provides tools to support the Government of Canada's marine conservation agenda, and modernizes the land tenure regime for offshore petroleum development. Nova Scotia's Energy Minister Trevor Boudreau said offshore wind is a game changer that could make the province a net exporter of clean energy. He said his government is harnessing this powerful natural resource to create green jobs and other economic benefits. With this legislation in place, Boudreau added that Nova Scotia is gearing up for the first license call this year, with plans to offer licenses for 5 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2030. With me today is the MLA for Guysborough-Tracadie and the Minister of Agriculture. Welcome, Greg Morrow.
Thanks for having me, Jake. Appreciate it.
In an announcement that took place on January 20th in Mulgrave, the provincial government confirmed that infrastructure upgrades will enable large turbines to move through the Strait of Canso Superport Corporation more safely and efficiently. In a press release announcing the funding, the province said this funding supports future wind energy projects, such as the nearby onshore wind farms proposed for Guysborough County. Maybe we could talk about those. How are those projects proceeding at the moment?
You know, they're going through the process. I'm in touch with those folks on a regular basis, and I believe the next step for them is another round of community engagement in the next few weeks. They have their community liaison group set up, so that's helpful. So that's kind of how things are going.
We know that there's a great deal of support from government, your government, and the private sector. What's the take on the community level? Is there much opposition or any questions or anything like that about these projects that you're running into or anything like that?
I think anytime you want to do anything, there's going to be some opposition. There's going to be some pushback. I think the biggest thing I hear is, we have questions. We don't have enough information right now. So I think that's why it's important to get this next round of community engagement going. It's why it's important to have the community liaison committee set up so that people can ask their questions and get the answers they're looking for.
You said in the press release that the Strait of Canso is a strategic area for wind energy development in the province, and the Superport has a key role to play. Is this announcement primarily about facilitating wind energy development in this region, or could this be used by other industries as well?
The issue that this investment solves is specific to large wind turbine components. So basically, the blades, to say simply. I just learned at the announcement on Monday that they're 83 meters. So these are large components, and don't know how familiar you are with the area, but there's a turn when you're coming out of Main Street going around the 344 that the trucks just wouldn't be able to navigate. So installing this Bailey Bridge, it takes that problem away, and they can come in off the ship, go out through the Bailey Bridge, and off they go to where they need to go.
Now, the project includes the installation of a prefabricated bridge at the Mulgrave Marine Terminal. According to your government, funding will be used for the installation of a 44-meter steel bridge at the northern end of the terminal, which will provide direct access to Route 344. When will this bridge be installed, or has it already been installed?
Yeah, it's actually been installed. So they had it on site for quite a while. The Superport folks brought us in just to kind of let us know about what the issue was, and ways around it. So they did bring up the option of the Bailey Bridge, so they did purchase it, and we were able to come in and help recover some of those costs for them. It is in place now. If you go to the release on the province of Nova Scotia website, there's actually a picture there, if that's helpful for you and your viewers. And talking to the Superport folks at the day of the announcement, they're pretty close to having it up and available to use. I think there's an issue. Just they need to have a gate in place so that there's a gate to stop regular traffic from going in there. But I think they're pretty close. I think even within the next month they should have everything in place it needs to be.
Now, the province is providing $750,000 in funding for capital upgrades to the terminal, including the installation of the bridge. Is there other work taking place there other than the bridge installation, or is that what's going on now?
That would be the main bulk of the funding, purchase of the bridge itself, and then the work to install it.
Joe Brennan, chair of the board of directors of the Strait of Canso Superport Corporation, said such investments will contribute to significant economic activity and create much needed jobs in the Strait region. How much will this benefit the region? I mean, I know it's hard to put a dollar amount on it, but it should add significantly to the economy.
Oh, you're right. There's a lot of potential in the Strait area, as you know, with different projects, and this is just an example of government and Superport working together. They addressed an issue that they saw a challenge, and they presented a solution to us, and we're happy to help. And this is you mentioned a couple projects right off the hop, but they made the point at Monday's announcement that the Superport just wasn't designed to do what they want to do moving forward. So this is an investment in the Superport and in future projects to come, not just the ones in the immediate future.
Do you anticipate there's going to be some further announcements going to be taking place in relation to this at the Superport, or anything else of this nature in the near or distant future?
Do you mean just at Superport, just in general, like other opportunities that may be coming forward?
Yeah, in that area and involving the Superport chiefly the Superport.
So look, this one, this is an investment not just in Superport; it's an investment in the town of Mulgrave. It's a key driver. It's an investment in the region. Like you talked about, it supports a number of projects. We will work with Superport. They've been a great partner on this one and other projects. So as those opportunities present themselves, we'll be there to work with them. I can't say too much right now, but we will have another announcement involving Superport hopefully in the weeks to come.
I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with me and our viewers about this important topic.
Absolutely. Always appreciate local media like you, Jake, reaching out. Happy to make time, and always happy to be on the airwaves with Teleo.
Thank you for watching. Please tune in again to find out what we will be talking about on The Record.